Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Muchas gracias.
Hi everyone, how are you? Thank you once again for participating in our webinar cycle. Today we have the webinar on K2BTools, where we're going to get a tool about from A to Z with K2BTools, building smart applications. This is a talk from Federico Dominioni. He was a K2BTools manager, and the dynamics is the usual. First, Federico will conduct the presentation, after which we will open the mic to a Q&A. So if you have any questions at any point, please make sure that you jot them down, because at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A. Also, I want to remind you that for this webinar, as usual, we have simultaneous interpreting available into English and into Portuguese. If you want to access the interpreting, you have to hit the interpretation icon, click on it, and choose the language of your liking. So without further ado, I leave the floor to Fede. Go ahead, Fede. Hi, thank you. Thank you to GeneXus, first of all, for giving me the opportunity of being here with you today for this presentation. Also, I want to thank all of you who have taken the time to be on the other side of the screen and hear what I have to tell you about this. I'm kind of scared about the number of people here today, but I'll do my best to give you the best lecture that I can possibly give you. As you know, I am part of K2BTools. K2BTools is part of two companies, K2BRP and GeneXus Consulting, which has multiple projects. So basically, we are GeneXus accelerators. What we do is we work every day to try and make the life of GeneXus developers simpler so that they can do things faster and better. One of the things that we are very much focused on is having a robust product, which is a product that seeks to operate for very small projects, but also for gigantic projects. And it is tried and tested in a large number of projects that use K2BTools. And we guarantee product quality because we focus on it. But at the same time, we also provide support. So today, for this particular talk, we are going to be building an application. No, I'm sorry, no, it's not what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to be developing today. And we're going to be applying multiple features of K2BTools so that you can understand how it works. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build an app. It's an education app. It's an app for education. So here we have an education center that has students, which is the data model, that enroll in courses. The course is connected to subjects, and each of the course also has schedules, classrooms. Also, each course will be assigned to a teacher, and they will also have exams. And of course, each exam will get a grade for each student. So that's the model for the app that we're going to be building today. So let's go to the first part of the presentation. First, we're going to be creating the backend, that is the admin interfaces to work with these entities, that is to manage all of these entities. So let's get started. Let's get our hands on, yeah? We're going to open GeneXus. We're going to use the KV. And first, we're going to work with the student transaction. I go to the pattern tab, and we're going to work with one of the patterns of K2BTools, which is called entity services. And I'm going to choose whether I want a default template or a predetermined template. Based on the characteristics of the transaction, the system is going to suggest templates for me. Maybe it can be a standard grid, maybe a card with pictures. And here I get real-time previews. So in this case, I'm going to be choosing multiple views. And for the entity manager, that shows me the entity and its relations, which based on the characteristics and relations of the transactions, the system will also suggest templates. And here I'm going to suggest one that shows a general overview of the student in cards. Now, this creates an instance of K2BTools to work with the students. But now I'm going to start personalizing the transaction. What I suggest you do here is you use the preview. This is a real-time preview. And you can actually, if you're using two monitors, have the preview tool in another monitor, and that better improves your experience. Here I'm going to be deleting things that I don't need, like certain filters, like a filter for date of birth that I don't want. Then I'm going to look at the preview of the entity manager, where I'm going to also customize the different components that K2BTools inferred I might need. For example, over here, we can see the grades, okay? Because the K2BTools actually brings together the attributes and shows them to us. And then once I finish with this iteration, I save the transaction that applies the pattern and creates a set of objects I'm going to hit F5 for the KB, and we're going to get something as a result. As you can see, I didn't have to write a single line of code for this. So without doing nothing, K2BTools allows me to generate this. So here I have an interface where I have all the students. We can also change the color palette. We can go from the light mode to the dark mode. We can also change the language if we want. If we want to have the KB in another language. We can also make changes to the grid. So in runtime, we can change what are the attributes that will be displayed. K2BTool also creates a pagination for the interface that I'm generating. We can also export all of this to PDF, to Excel, to CVS. My template has a multiple view template, and that's interesting because perhaps the teachers can figure out who is whom by the picture and not necessarily by name. So it's nice to have that view as well, you know? He says, oh, that's the guy that sits at the front row. Okay, I can identify them. And it's great that both views have the same filter. So if I filter something for one view, I also see it in the other. And as you see so far, I didn't have to write a single line of code, and already K2BTools has generated all of this. And in comparison, imagine what it had been like in terms of time for you to create this by hand, manually, right? A lot of time. Remember that I had defined the identity in the entity manager. So here I can see the related information. I see the student. I see the exams. I see the grade. I see the courses. I can also create a new register. So now I'm going to improve this transaction interface a bit more so that it is a bit prettier. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, if I want to add the date of birth of the student using the calendar, I'm going to end up doing, clicking a lot. So maybe there's a more practical way of doing it. And as a matter of fact, there is. So I'm going to tell you how we can do it using K2BTools. For that, I'm going to go into the student transaction. I am going to go to patterns. And I'm going to make a change so that the name and the last name are in the same row. And then for the date of birth, I'm going to use the extended control types of K2BTools so that in order to better improve the experience, I'm going to use the split date picker of K2BTools. And I'm going to say that the type is suggest for the field type. And I'm going to save that transaction. The pattern is going to be applied. I'm going to go for build and let's see what is generated. So automatically, when we go to the transaction interface, you see the date control, which is very practical. Yeah, and you can solve it quite quickly. So I can choose any student. And then we have a disambiguation of the dates because I see the date of birth for this person under the name November. So it's clear for me. Because if I had seen 11/03/1994, I would have wondered, is that March the 11th or is that November the 3rd? So that's something that can be disambiguated like this. Okay, so now let's continue applying the pattern to the different entities of the system. Now, in the case of students, we noticed that when we enrolled a student, we had a fully dedicated interface to do that. But what we're going to do now with the enrollments is we're going to use another addition mode. What we did first is the standard mode, but I can change the mode actually here. And I can say, okay, I want to do it with master detail. The only thing you have to do is change this property. And by changing the property, you will get an entirely different behavior. For example, for the enrollment of the students. So you will have the master detail interface, where to the right you have the detail, and to the left you have the enrollments. And that's where you will be able to enroll students in subjects and courses. Here I am using the extended control type of K2BTools, and I'm also using a dynamic tool. And what's interesting about this is that through just one property, I can very quickly obtain all of this behavior. And then when we have an exam and we want to create the exam grades, and we want to do that in the same grid and not have a dedicated interface, we have another edit mode called inline. And if we change that property, automatically we have this interface. And there, the end user can directly modify the data within the same grid. And over there, you see the grade results. Over here, we clearly see if the student passed or failed the exam through this pin, indicating either failing or passing. Now, how can we create this with K2BTools, you might wonder? Well, to do that, one of the alternatives, for example, here in the subwork with, you can go to the conditional pills property that enables us to establish a condition, and that tells us what is the text and the class. So this is great, and it works, but what I'm interested in this app is that generally what I will want to see is for that pill to come up. So I don't want to edit this conditional pill everywhere in the system. So what I can do is I can create a pill provider for an attribute. And basically, this is what needs to be returned. So you write the source code like this, and then you can reuse this in all the interfaces that you want. This also works if we have a numbered domain. In that way, I can make sure that for every value, you can have a pill associated, so that every time you see that number domain, the interface can show you this. Now let's continue building the backend and talk about some other things that I want to include. So for the courses, I would like, for example, to be able to filter information by subject. So I want to choose between multiple subjects. Or maybe I can even choose who the courses based on the teachers that lecture them. That's also information that I want to provide. Or maybe I would like to see what are the courses that start in May, or what are the ones that start in June, or what are the ones that begin in one specific date. And this is interesting because rather than show us a date range from until, this is better because it just says June and that's it. So I don't have to mark the period of, 1st of June to 30th. I just mark June and that's it. Now, how do we do this? Well, if I go to the filters, when I create a filter variable, I can tell the variable to be a collection And if I say that it is a collection, this will allow for it to be multiple. And then we have our K2B control types that actually can create changes, like in the dynamic combo box. There we can include the data sources and automatically we see this. Now this is interesting because we don't just use this in the filters, but we can use this everywhere in the app, in transactions, in a data entry panel, everywhere we want, we can use these extended control types, either extended or simple. And then in terms of semantic filters, when you have dynamic range filter, we can say that it is a dynamic range set, and we there establish the data range set provider that interprets the range from to within the combo and automatically creates this. So all of this is predefined within K2BTools. So now we have been applying the multiple tools to the different entities of our system, and we have been able to build a nice, pretty backend. Now we're going to talk about how K2BTools helps us analyze information as well. So in the same way that in the student grids, I have a view that allows me to look at the images, I also want to get more analytical information about the courses. For example, maybe I want to know what is the average grade for each course. Also, I want to know what is the percentage of passes. I can filter by subject. I can change the view so I can see this as a grid, or I can see this as an analysis as well. And I can look at this by professor to see who are the ones that are more generous or who is the nicest. And I can see the pass grades by subject for those teachers as well. So how do we create this kind of interface? Well, we're going to work with the business analysis view. Now, how does this work? The first thing we have to do is we need to create a query object. The GeneXus query has a high level of abstraction. So what we're going to do in this query as developers is define an indicator and the dimensions that they want to use and how they'll look like. Once the developer does this, what he or she needs to do within the work with is create a business analysis view node, and then they can start incorporating different query objects. We have different queries here. Then they complete the interface with the necessary query objects. And once the pattern is applied, what happens is that K2BTools will keep what was defined by the developer, which are the parameters and the dimensions, and then it will include more parameters and filters to better filter that information and see if the same filters that we were applying can be applied within all the queries that we had defined. Now, the interesting thing about this is that if in this panel I add or delete filters, they will always be applied to the queries. So the queries are always synced to the interface, and that enables us to have analysis view of the information. Another thing that I want to do, perhaps, is to include the schedule for each of the courses. So maybe I would like to see that as a calendar because that's a pretty view and it also allows me to edit information. I can change the the timetable and I can change the room and I can even make that recurrent. So I would like to see all of this in a calendar view. Now, how do we do this with K2BTools? Another thing that we can add to our entities, in this case to the calendar, is a new calendar. I can create the calendar node, and the only thing I have to do in the node is define what are the identifiers, what are the IDs, what is the description that I'm going to be showing, include the course schedule start and the course schedule end, and automatically I get the calendar generated with the possibility of including more information within that calendar. And we can do all of that automatically using K2B. Now, another thing that we want to have within this app that we're going to be developing is a sort of student portal, because when the student logs in, they want to look at their timetable. They want to see the the schedule, they want to see the rooms, and they also want to see what are the exams they have to sit. And they even would like to filter the calendar by course or by exam. So that gives them a weekly view or a monthly view with all of their calendar. So let me explain how we do that with K2BTools. Let's see how we can build this interface quite simply. So we have the web panel designer, which is a K2BTools tool that enables us to build any web panel. And because we don't want a grid here, we only want a calendar view. We're going to go into a collection view and then we're going to create the calendar view and we're going to include the calendars that we want to have. In this case, the courses calendar and the exams calendar. Now, because there's a logic behind this, and that means that I want this to be information for one given student. Oh, by the way, we can load the calendars from a date source from, and we can do that from a data provider. And in the data provider, what we have to do is define the instances, the ID, the description, the date from, the date time, the date to, date time. And if you create that data provider that returns that information, we automatically can upload this. So all the views that are filtered for courses and exams, or the weekly view or the monthly view is automatically included in the calendar control for K2BTools. So this is, as you see, something that is also very simple and you can apply it. So we will continue now moving forward with another part of the application. We will now move into security. We want to add security to the app, and we also want to create an app menu. So for security, although K2BTools can be used without GAM, what we always recommend is for you to use the GAM module of GeneXus. So what we're going to do in our KB is install the GAM integration module. What this does is import the interfaces, the front-end interfaces that are necessary for security and also the back-end part so that you can get the look and feel of K2BTool. So in our case, we have roles of students, backend roles, and of teachers as well. Now, in order to create the app menu and make it pretty and add the icons, we have a specific pattern called the K2B menu pattern. We define the sublevels and the objects within within them, and automatically we are setting up the menu. We can even include as part of the menu objects other instances, and this will automatically be generated. Another interesting thing is that if you use this to define the menu, when you visualize the user options, security will be checked so that a user will never see an option of the menu for which it has no permit. So you define the full menu, and then for security purposes, securities will be showed based on the role. In my case, I have a backend role, so the user menu is personalized with all the things that I can do in my backend role. But here you see it from the student role, and here I will only see the student's options. And this is something that is done automatically by K2BTools. So you don't have to develop anything here. Okay, let's keep moving forward and let's keep adding improvements. Apps nowadays also need to have a way to tell you about the relevant things that are happening in the app. That is to notify the users through diverse means that something happened within the app. Also, it is interesting to note that apps need to be collaborative because we many times work remotely. In that way, people can have a dialogue within the app, and all of that dialogue should be stored in the app so that one can go back to it and see why certain decisions were made. So what are we going to do now? Well, once the teacher includes the results of the test, they're going to publish them. So what I want to see happening here is that when the teacher publishes these results, all the students that sat to the exam get a notification so that they can access the site. So once the results are published, our student, in this case Emma Smith, will get a notification saying that your midterm exam result for the history of Western music is available, so she can go in. So she must be happy, right? She got excellent results, 90%. Over here, we have a collaborative component. I can write to the teacher, in this case, Stella Bennett, who is the teacher. And she's going to complain in this case because she doesn't know why she got 90% when she should have gotten 100%. No, she was really clear on history of Western music, and that's why she's angry that she didn't get the full grade. I would have never complained had I been her, but okay. Imagine she does complain. Well, then the teacher will get the notification saying, oh, someone mentioned me. And so the teacher can go to the place where the person complained. And the teacher says, you know what, I'm not going to waste time. I'm not going to answer. This is Emma Smith. She's always sitting at the front. She's always bothering me. Nope, I'm not going to answer. So she can decide not to interact, but she could if she wanted to. And the decision not to reply is also recorded in the system. Now, how do we build this with K2BTools? Well, simple. We are going to install a module called the Notifications and Collaboration module. When you install this module, this is going to create a data module, a backend, and some APIs And we're going to look into them now. So how do we get the collaborative part? Well, once we install the module, we will have a property called allow user comments. And the only thing that you have to do as a developer is put that into true, and automatically you will get this information. On the other hand, what do we have to do? Well, if we want to notify all the users that sat the exam of the results, we have to create an event type. In this case, it's exam grade published. Here we indicate if I want to notify only one person. Here, this is the sysadmin. I want to show what is the media delivery system. It can be a web notification, but it can be an email or another system. And here we have a message template, which is the message that the student will be receiving along with the notification. And then what the developer will have to do is in the prompt, they need to call the API to create the event. This API is part of this module. And in the API, we have the event type, which is exams results published, and what are the users being notified. And by just doing that, you provide all users with a notification. So this is also something that can be used and done quite simply. And that is how we grow this application. So let's continue working on it because we're not done yet. Remember that nowadays, most apps don't work in isolation. So generally speaking, they need to consume services or provide services. In this case, we have a system for the revalidation of exams, and we need to include all the exams results so then a central student's office can have access to all the results. So let's see how we can do that using K2BTools. So I'm still working in the app, and I'm going to go to the exam grade transaction, and I'm going to execute an action called create services wizard. This is going to open up a wizard where I can configure what are the services that I want to create. I'm going to hit OK here, and this is going to generate a service definition object. So in the structure, I'm going to include the services, but here I'm going to include the exam grades published, and this holds for all the services. This is the definition of the services generated, the get all, the get by results. So these are the services that I automated. And I can also build the services. So when I apply this, automatically this is going to create the procedures for the services. And this API object is going to be shared by K2BTools and the developer. So by doing this, we show all the exam results published. So the people that are going to be consuming this service use GeneXus and K2BTools. So let's see what they have to do to consume the service. So we're going to be in the other KRE, the one of the general student's office. And we're going to be executing an application integration. We're going to import. and we're going to consume these services through the Open API import. And we're actually doing this almost in real time. And we're going to say that this should go into the services module folder. We're importing the services. In this case, we're going to import them all. And then once we import all the services, we create a new panel. In this case, it's get exam grades. I'm going to activate it, and I'm going to execute the action called add grid from procedures. And here I am going to choose services procedure, and I'm going to choose the get all. I'm going to choose the standard grid. I'm going to save that information. And now, without doing absolutely anything, is go F5 to build, and I will automatically see a grid that shows me by service what are the results of the different exams without again having to write a single line of code. I even have a filter by last name, and I can see this and do this absolutely quickly. So this is extremely efficient using GeneXus with support of K2BTools. Now let's continue working on the app because we want to add more things to the app. So now we're going to go with the intent-based navigation. So what we want to do in the app is have an assistant that will help us navigate the app and we're going to ask the assistant things to do things. Here we're using GeneXus Enterprise AI, of course. So the first thing we have to do is install the intent-based navigation module in the KB. This is going to install modules and procedures to communicate with GeneXus Enterprise AI. And we will also see a chat in the interface. So I will then be able to talk to my assistant and ask them something. For example, show all courses taught by Benjamin or Sophie, because they are great teachers. I really like how they teach, and I want to see those courses. Now, this is connected to GeneXus Enterprise AI and its artificial intelligence modules, and automatically leads me to the interface that filters the content by Benjamin and Sophie. Now, imagine that I am interested in literature and analysis, right? So I'm going to ask now my assistant to enroll Emma Smith in literature and analysis because I think it's an interesting course. So I execute that in the assistant, and over there, my assistant is going to take me to the associated interface for me to enroll this person. But the thing here is that it's good for us to manually confirm the information, and that's why they don't do it automatically. And here we can see that this person was enrolled. So like I said, this is using GeneXus Enterprise AI. We have multiple users that are already using this. We also have ORP, which is a giant KB with 3,000 400 user interfaces. In a case like that, this is fundamental because these are products that are very rich at the functional level, but it's necessary for us to have an assistant to help the users who use these apps navigate them. And this is the future. This is here to stay,
Está
actually.
bueno que todos empiecen a usar también
And I think
GeneXus.
it's great
Y
for you
bueno,
to start
después
using
vamos
it.
al punto Z,
And then let's go to the Z
para el design system
for the
configuration.
design system configuration.
Entonces vamos a mostrarle un poquito
We're going to be
cómo lo
showing
hacemos.
you
Primero vamos a
now
cambiar la Z del design system configuration. Vamos a ver en qué versión lo largamos porque estamos
how we do
haciendo
this, okay?
el cambio de la S
We
con
are
la
having a
Z
conversation
del design
about whether the
system.
change of the S and Z is for designer
Seguimos
system. You can tell
adelante,
us what you prefer, designer
pero vamos a
system.
ver, lo importante es que nosotros tenemos
But
nuestra
anyway, the
configuración
important
ya
thing here is
asignada,
that we have already set up our app.
digamos, con una interfaz
It
predeterminada,
has a
usando
predetermined
colores.
interface that we got from
Y bueno, ahora
K2BTools.
lo que queremos es, de repente
And
se
what
para
we
nuestra
want
aplicación
now is
y decir,
to
bueno,
get
¿cómo
together with the
querés
end user and say,
ver tu aplicación?
okay, how do you want this
Y una cosa
uh,
importante que este
app to look
cambio se
like?
puede hacer en cualquier etapa del desarrollo.
And
Uno lo puede hacer al
mind
principio,
you,
pero lo
you
puede
can
hacer
make
también al
this
final,
change at any
porque para mí
point
una de las ventajas que
in the
tiene K2
process of the
es su
development. You can do it at the
información
beginning, the middle,
gerenciable
or the end,
en todas
because
las instancias
for
y todas
K2B
las
tools,
campañas.
the
Esto no es gratis.
design
Entonces,
information is
realmente
not
uno
in the
dice, bueno, lo puedo hacer
pattern.
en cualquier
So you can
etapa del
actually do
desarrollo.
this at
Entonces,
any
bueno,
point
con la
of your
aplicación hicimos bastante
development.
avanzada, la
So
arrancamos con nuestro
as you
cliente
have moved
y
forward with the app,
empezamos
you
en
get together with your client, and when you are executing the design system
se va
configuration,
a montar esta interfaz donde uno
you
va a
get
poder
this
elegir cuál
interface
es su design system base que quiere utilizar y
and you
después
can
va a tener
choose
una
what is the
presentación
baseline design
donde
system that you
realmente
want to do
elecciones
use. And here you
desde
have a vast
finish y setup,
array of
donde podemos
options.
mirar las distintas
You can
interfaces.
click next or
Acá
finish
en
to
este
see
logo
what
hay
are
algunos
the
pasos, entonces
different
en este caso quiero
interfaces.
sacar el footer, no me interesa tenerlo.
Imagine you want to take out the footer, you
Y
can
seguimos
take it
viendo todo lo que
out.
tiene que
You
ver con
want
la
to
aplicación.
and
Voy a elegir
regardless
un
of what you
un
want, you
menú
get a
horizontal.
real-time preview of the app.
Vamos a elegir un menú horizontal.
You can choose
Voy a la
horizontal
siguiente.
menus, vertical menus, and you click on next and next, and
Y
you get your real-time
vamos a
preview.
mirar también cuáles son
You
las
can
opciones
also
personalizadas.
configure the
Esto
colors
también
that
para
you want to
personalizar,
use
entonces quiero
or the
utilizar esto,
sizes.
achicar
For
la fuente
example,
del,
you
la
can
fuente
have a
del mensaje
smaller
en este
font
caso,
for the
la hago
header.
más chica.
You can do that.
Quiero,
Or
por
you
ejemplo,
can
ir a los word widths
go to the
y
work
decirle
widths
que las acciones quiero que aparezcan
and say
a la
that you
izquierda.
would like to have
Después vamos
actions to the
a
left.
mostrar el record count, que es
And you also
básicamente
want to show the record
aparecen
count,
cada
which
acción
is
por
the
un lado.
number of
Y
lines in each
puedo seguir iterando
page.
con el wizard o
And
si
you can
quiero
continue
agregar
doing
alguna
iterations in the
operación en el
wizard
preview.
and then say,
Ya
okay,
está, voy a
fine,
finish
I think we're done. I'm going to
y
hit
automáticamente
finish.
se van a aplicar
And
los
automatically,
cambios
all those changes are going to be
de
applied in
aplicación.
the KB.
Y una vez que hago eso,
Then you apply the
ya obtengo,
instances, and once you've
digamos,
done
mi
that,
aplicación
you get your
ya
app.
con el nuevo
And you get your
design
app
system.
with the
Automáticamente se
new
acomoda, acá
config.
tenemos el tipo de menú
And there you have the type of menu, the colors,
de la aplicación con las opciones a la izquierda,
and we see
con
the app with
el
options to the
control
left
de cuántas páginas
and with the page
estamos
control at the
mostrando
bottom.
automáticamente y en poco tiempo.
So automatically and in a
Esto tengo
very
listo,
little time, without it having an impact on your development, you can make all of these changes to the design system configuration. So it is 2:47. I jammed pack a lot of information, but as you see, in very little time, we were able to create a very interesting app using K2BTools. And I hope that this was interesting for you. Now, what can you do with this? Intent-based navigation, that's what you can do. Look, what we want is for all the K2B tools to use this.
Para eso, digamos, si quieren pueden escanear este código QR que
For that, you can
van a tener
scan
acá
this
también
QR
para
code that
conectarse.
will lead you to a
Esto
landing
sí requiere
where you can register.
para el uso de esto,
Of course, in order to
requiere una
use
suscripción
this,
hasta
you do need to be subscribed to
muy,
GeneXus
muy económica.
Enterprise, but it is a truly
Recomiendo
affordable
que se
subscription,
conecte,
and I do recommend
si son,
you
conecten
connect.
a esto.
because this will give you much more information.
parte de nuestra comunidad de
The
Estados
other thing
Unidos.
is we would like for
Esta
all of you
plataforma
to
que
be
se crea
part of
desde
our
el
K2B
desarrollo
Tools
de
community. You can go
formas
into
para conocer un
K2BTools.com.
layout
You can
que
download the free
realmente
edition
tenga
versions
una
that
implementación y
are
pueda dar
useful
los
to build
resultados
an
que
app, and you
queremos
can
de
see
manera
the
profesional.
full power of
Y bueno, en
K2B
esta ocasión,
Tools.
digamos, nosotros también tratamos de estar siempre cerca de todos
And know
ustedes
that we always try to
a
be
través,
close
digamos,
to you
de publicaciones en
through
nuestro wiki,
publications in our wiki,
capacitaciones,
where we have all of our
capacitaciones
documentation. We have a large
gratuitas a
amount
veces
of
de forma
training
libre.
videos.
Bueno, estos
We
webinars y
teach you how to
capacitaciones
use K2B Tools from
nosotros,
scratch.
digamos,
We
es un
also have
lugar que es
webinars for you.
muy reconocido
We
por
also
todo
have
el mundo.
support that it is highly
Un foro
recognized by
técnico
the
donde también estamos muy
K2B
abiertos a
Tools
discusiones. Por
users.
ejemplo,
We
los
have
Saturdays, que son los
technical
días
forums. We also
quincenales,
have a
una vez
space
al
for
año, donde
K2B
nos
Tools,
juntamos
which
con
are
todos los
activities that we
usuarios.
conduct multiple times a
Y
year,
bueno,
where we
seguimos
get
apoyando
together
los
with
esfuerzos
users
caminando todos
and
ustedes
have
para seguir
conversations
mejorando
about the work that we're
nuestro
doing.
producto.
And we get your
Bueno,
feedback to
nosotros
evolve our
implementamos también
product.
PowerTool Web, pero también tenemos otras soluciones
And we also have K2B Tools Web, K2B Tools
dispositivos
Mobile
para
for native devices,
para
K2B
tener una
Audit
tasa de lo que
to
sucede,
have
las
traceability,
altas, bajas modificaciones y qué ve el usuario dentro de la
to
aplicación.
see what the
Todo el mundo
user
participando ahí
sees
en los
in the
espacios de
app.
discusión.
And then we have K2BT call you
Esto
for
era
video calls.
lo que tenía para contarles. Agradezco a todos
So that's
ustedes
what I
por
had
haber
to
estado en esta
tell
charla. Y
you.
bueno,
Thank you
ahora
for
sí,
listening. And
igual,
now
no sé, si te parece, podemos abrir
I
para
can
preguntas.
open the room for
Esto para
questions.
empezar, porque capaz que respondo cualquier cosa, ¿no? No
Um,
damos garantía de las
I do
respuestas,
not guarantee that my
pero
answers will
bueno,
be
las
great,
hay.
though. Know
Vamos a
that.
ver, tenemos muchísimas preguntas, así que
Okay, we have
vamos a
so
ir
many questions.
Bueno,
Wow.
La primera pregunta la
The
hace
first
un
question
usuario
is
común
by John
de
Milton,
YouTube.
asking
Pregunta
from
si
YouTube. He
sabe si
asked, could you
usaste
share the
GeneXus
KB
para prácticas.
that you used for
sí, la
practices?
idea un poco es esta, acabé de compartirla,
Yeah,
pero
we're
ya
going to be
está
sharing this KB with you. I
disponible
think it's
como
a really
para
full
después.
KB, and this is
Lo vamos a publicar
a
para que
material that
todos
we will
podamos
be publishing so that all the K2B Tools users can
Vamos
profit
a
from it.
darle
Okay,
la
great.
palabra a los
So
usuarios
let's
para que
go to
pregunten.
the people that have their
Primero
hands
va a
up.
ser Giordano Stemperec.
First, Giordano
Lo
Stemperek.
estoy habilitando para que pueda hablar. Adelante,
You
Giordano,
have
que
you
ya
have the
lo
floor.
tengo
Go
habilitado
ahead.
para poder preguntar. Bueno, parece que no.
It appears
Vamos
he's
con
not
Julián.
talking.
Julián Calderón.
Julian Carderon.
Estás habilitado. Adelante, Julián.
Go ahead, Julian.
Bueno,
Buenas
mientras.
tardes.
Adelante,
No,
Julián.
hola, buenas tardes. No, pues creo que estaba ahora solo saludando y se me activó
Hi, I'm sorry I was saying hi, but
no, igual aprovecho para felicitarlos. Me gusta mucho el proyecto.
congratulations though.
Espero poder
I really like the
interactuar con
project
el
and I hope
trabajo
I'll
que
be
hacen.
able to further interact with it. Thank you for the presentation.
Muchas
Perfecto.
gracias, Julián.
Ahí está, vieron, nos pueden escribir acá
Remember, you
info@k2btools.com
can write a
para
message
cualquier
to
duda,
info at
consulta, cualquier cosa
k2btools.com
que
if you have
necesiten,
any
acá estoy
questions,
disponible.
any
Y listo. Otra consulta que tengan,
doubts.
nos escriben ahí
You
que
can just
nosotros
send a
estamos
message
abiertos.
and we actually get this
Bueno, una
directly.
invitación también para todos para que nos escriban por ahí.
So, hey, don't forget to
Bueno,
write.
vamos con Ariana Fornero.
Great, let's go with Arena Fornero.
Ariana.
Ariana?
Bueno,
Okay, someone
voy
else who's not
con
talking.
una
Let's
pregunta
go
que está
to
acá
a
escrita.
question that is
Acarreño
here.
dice,
Acarreño says, is the split date picker for K2B tools a new control? The
Está
split
disponible
date
desde la versión
picker has been
15.1,
available since
así
the
que ya está habilitado.
15.1 version. It has been released and you can use it.
Lo
Okay?
pueden usar.
Yep, you can use it.
perfecto, vamos
Okay,
con
good. Let's go to
Castaño.
Adrián Castaño.
Estás habilitado, Adrián, como para
You
preguntar.
can talk if you want in the microphone.
Bueno, parece que hay varios que
It appears
van a
that there are many
levantar la mano.
people that
Yo voy a levantar,
wanted to say hi, but they raised their hands. So if you have your hand up, I will put them down. And if you want to ask a question, now you can raise your hand. I now see people that are raising their hands because they want to ask a question. Go ahead, Alejandro. Hi, can you hear me? Yep. Congratulations to K2BTools. It is a great project. I was happily surprised by it. But I have a couple of questions. I am looking into Super App and Mini App. And based on what is being said about Super App and Mini App, I've heard that they can accept WebMobi for Super App or Mini App. So what happens with the packet there? And the second question is, does any template that I create in Figma or Sketch can be imported as a template for the pattern in K2B? Those are my two questions.
Sobre la primera pregunta con respecto a la parte de mini app y
Okay,
super app,
so in terms of mini app and super apps,
tú le estemos imponiendo una limitación.
I don't see how we are limiting you for that. If you have a real case that you want us to analyze, you can send us an email, but I don't see how that might be a problem. And then in terms of doing imports from Figma,
Bueno, sí, a ver, nosotros tenemos una herramienta, digamos,
we
esto genera paneles.
have a tool
Permite pasar esos paneles a
that shifts panels to
Ahí hay un
designer.
trabajo lindo que habría que hacer, que hay
And
muchos
I
videos
think
de
a nice
referencia, pero
thing
podríamos también dar
we
esa,
could do is
esa
try and see
posibilidad
if we
también
could give you the
de poder
possibility of
transformar eso en un template o uno de los layouts de
changing
K2B.
that into a
Entonces,
template and let the
realizamos un
layout
arreglo
of
igual para la parte,
K2B
por
to
ejemplo,
use that.
de los web panels. Nosotros tenemos un extractor que podemos
Then in the web
extraer
panels, we have an
un panel
extractor that enables us to extract information from the panel into a dynamic layout that can be reutilized in other panels. We actually tried that with the import from Figma, so that's something that can help you. And then the other thing you have to do is when you execute this import from Figma or Sketch to move that into your design system. So we have tools that can support you in this process. But of course, this will depend on the type of app that you are building. However, note that if you're interested in getting more information about this, you can also send us a message to info@k2btools.com to support you. Okay. We have so many questions. I'm selecting some of them, and those that we do not respond, I will be sharing with Fede so that he can answer later. I have a question from Luis Ramos, and he says he already uses K2BTools in all of his resources, but he wants to know if there is an advanced course to learn how to use those resources to the most. Well, we have multiple K2BTools courses planned. One for August, actually. So, Luis, we can actually share with you the agenda for the course if you want. We have yet to choose a date, but it will take place in August. Then we're thinking about creating a more advanced course for K2BTools users that have been using the product for a very long time and who might want to become more senior users of K2BTools. And we are going to be providing that as well. So if you want, you can send us a message to that email and we can provide you with the information necessary and tell you when we're going to conduct those activities. And since you are
Si tenés
already
dudas
a
de alguna
K2B
funcionalidad
Tools
específica o alguna pieza que pueda
user,
usar, también puedes usar el soporte
you
y
can
lo
use
podemos
us as a
ir
support
desarrollando para que, bueno,
system if you
para
have
que
any
logres
questions,
cumplir tus
because
objetivos.
we
Así que es
want
algo que
you to be
necesitamos.
able to meet your goals. Okay?
Dale, perfecto.
Okay, perfect.
Tenemos a
Thank
Carlos
you.
Llano que
We have
pregunta
Carlos
por punto
Shano.
y levanta la mano, así que vamos a darle
He
la
was
palabra.
raising
Adelante,
his
Carlos.
hand, so go ahead, Carlos. Yes, good
Sí,
afternoon. Can you
Pilar,
hear
adelante.
me? Yeah. Thank you. First of all, congratulations for the presentation. Now, my question is about support because I have to do maintenance on applications, and sometimes I have issues with the software that runs with GeneXus and K2BTools. So, what is the expedited way for me to make requests for support?
Pues, Carlos, por lo menos creo que, no sé,
Carlos,
vos Aníbal
your
estuviste
audio
en
was a bit
Pregunta cuál
muffled.
es el canal
He wants to know what is the
para soporte.
fastest way
el
to
canal
access
el canal
support.
es support@k2b.com.
It's support
Ese es el
at
canal, creo que no sé si
k2btools.com.
lo usaste o
I
no,
don't
pero
know
es
if
un
you
canal muy
sent
abierto.
messages there, but it's a really
Ese es
speedy
el canal
support
oficial y
system.
ahí estamos
That is
respondiendo
the official system.
rapidísimo.
And
Eso
we answer
es lo que
very
nos dicen los
quickly.
usuarios y lo que nos
At
dan todas
least
las
that's what the
estadísticas
users
de los
say and what the
usuarios. Así que
statistics
lo más
in
rápido
our
es
support
preguntar
tool
por ahí,
show.
porque ahí
So
tenés
the
a la
quickest thing is
entrada
to
todos los
ask
datos
through
de
there
tu
because that's where we all get the
Entonces,
information and the
cualquier
questions.
consulta,
So any
realmente, digamos,
questions, any
a veces nos
requests
pasa, digamos,
should go through
de
there.
repente vas a un evento y te encontrás con gente que te
Sometimes
hacen
what
una
happens is that
permanente y de
we
repente
go
nosotros
to an
ya avisamos,
event
che, que les vamos a demorar.
and they ask a
Y bueno,
question and we
la verdad
say,
que
why
nosotros
didn't
estamos
you
respondiendo
send this to
toda la
support?
velocidad, lo estamos
They say,
respondiendo
well,
en
this
vivo.
might take a month. And
Así
we say,
que
no, we
esa es
answer
una
on the same
de las
day.
recomendaciones que usen también los
So
canales de
we
soporte.
recommend you
Es
use our
algo
support
que
channels
estamos
really
aprendiendo,
because
pero la verdad
this is something that our
que
users
todo
truly value and
una
we
buena calidad de servicio.
do
Así
the
que,
most
Carlos,
to
mi
provide you
recomendación es
with
que mandes
good
saludos.
quality services. So
Que
I recommend you
como
send a
para
message
todos
there,
estos
Carlos, because we
participantes
all get the message.
también está calificado
And the most qualified person will always be
para
answering. Okay, thank you.
Bien, perfecto. Gracias, Carlos. Vamos
Thank
con
you, Carlos.
Fabián Viamonte.
Let's go to Fabián
Adelante,
Beamonte.
Fabián.
Fabián.
Bueno,
Okay,
vamos con Daniel Alberto
let's
Díaz.
go to Daniel Alberto Díaz.
Adelante, Daniel.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Bueno, mientras tanto voy a contestar
Okay,
alguna que haya quedado colgada.
let's see.
Varios han pedido si
A
podemos
lot of
mostrar
people have
nuevamente
said
el QR code
if
que
you could
dejamos
show
al
the QR
principio
code
de...
again that you had by the end. The,
¿Dejé?
Q
Sí,
the
sí,
QR
sí,
code.
bien,
Oh,
bien.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sí, yo sigo compartiendo, siguen viendo mi pantalla
Sí,
compartida.
sí, sí, estamos
You still see
viendo.
my
Sí,
screen? Yeah?
lo que quisieran es ver
They
el
want to see
QR
the
Vamos a
QR
ver
code.
ahí
Great.
está el código QR para donde pueden.
perfecto.
There is the QR. Yeah.
Tengo una pregunta acá de Carson
There's a
Web and
question
Filio
here
que
from
dice, ¿cómo
Carson Web and
funciona el
Filia?
modo
It
de
says,
integración
how does
con
the integration
GeneXus
module
AI?
work
¿Es
with
el
GeneXus
mismo
Enterprise
de
AI?
K2 Tools Web?
Is that
Sí,
in
claro. De hecho,
K2B
está
Tools for Web?
preguntado tu
Yeah,
web.
it is incorporated in K2B Tools for Web. So we have precompiled modules there, and once you are interested in including this in your app, just contact us through the landing and we can share with you the token and the information necessary to configure it in your app. So yeah, this is incorporated in the web system. Great. So for those of you who wanted to know about the video recording, this talk is in our website, genexus.com/webinar, and you can see it there. So there are many questions to answer, but we have ran out of time.
Pásamelas, Aníbal.
So we're going to be sharing these questions with Fede so that he can answer them. Thank you once again for participating and see you in the next webinar. Bye bye.
Bueno, chau, chau y muchas gracias a todos.
Bye bye
Nos
and thank
vemos.
you everyone. Bye bye.